stolen from the world.
Hey, my friends, welcome back and thank you for joining your girl, Anna B, for another episode Behind the Walls. For sure, I have to shout out all of my friends who joined me on the very first live Behind the Walls last Thursday. Oh my goodness, I just had to break the ice, got some new equipment, kids were gone. So, of course, I had to put it into action. But I will for sure give you all a heads up the next time I'm clicking on to that live so you can pull up on me. Of course, shout out to all of our day ones in between and our new friends who have recently subscribed to the channel. Thank you so very much. This video here definitely is overdue. Sue Stewart, 8099, I got you, boo. This one is for you. Our friend has put in a request, and I don't even know how I didn't see all of your requests, to be quite honest. But definitely was not ignoring you, and I hope you enjoy Delaware Part 1. Let's get Christy Haas referred to herself as KB Haas on Facebook. This was her last profile picture, which she updated on June 11th, 2018. She lived in Smyrna, Delaware, but was born in Bloomington, Indiana. A year after meeting Brandon Haas at a drug rehabilitation center in Florida, the two married on May 10th, 2017. Christy was also the mother of 4 children that she did not have custody of at the time. Maybe this would explain why the seemingly happy couple photos that she plastered up and down her Facebook page outnumbered those of her children. Not long after marrying Brandon, Christy regained custody of her youngest daughter, Emma Grace Cole, and a few months later, she regained custody of her 3 older children. On September 13th, 2019, a resident of the community, while walking their dog through Little Last Fields, a softball park across the road from Smyrna Middle School in central Delaware, discovered burnt skeletal remains. DFS forensic investigators were called out to the scene by responding officers who confirmed the remains belonged to a child. The child had been dead for several weeks, possibly longer by the time they were found. Authorities released what little information they had about the burnt skeletal remains. It was their estimate that the remains were those of either a Caucasian or Hispanic child between ages 2 and 5 and had lightly wavy brown hair. Throughout 2019 and 2020, local police and investigators, along with the FBI, worked to identify this child. Named Baby L by law enforcement and the public, Baby L's description did not match any missing person report in the state. The Smyrna police received a tip that the remains were those of Emma Grace Cole. Following up on that tip, the police surveillanced Christy, her 3 children, and Brandon. Officers collected trash that Christy threw into a dumpster. DNA from the discarded trash and DNA recovered from the child's remains were compared. The results indicated that there was a high likelihood that Christy was the deceased child's mother. And to add, during the 2 weeks that the police conducted surveillance on Christy and her family, officers never saw Emma Cole. In October of 2020, it was confirmed that Emma was the daughter of Christy Lynn Haas and Joshua Douthit. Soon after came Christy and Brandon's arrest on October 12th.
We knew that the mission was not complete until we were able to bring homicide charges in this case.
Here was a 3-year-old victim stolen from the world. These are the crimes that keep us up at night.
We believe her few short years were filled with abuse and torture.
According to court documents, on July 27th, 2019, when Emma was 3 years old, Christy found her unresponsive and tried reviving her with a cold shower. Christy apparently stopped Brandon from calling 911, telling him it was too late. Brandon took the 3 other children to his mother's house while Christy disposed of Emma's body. While Christy tossed Emma's clothing, she reportedly said, "That's it for Emma. Emma's not coming back." She refused to answer her husband's questions about what she did with her daughter's body, and neither of the two ever reported Emma's death to police. The mother of 4 lied to her family about Emma's whereabouts after she died, telling them Emma had the devil in her eyes and she was in a facility for children with mental illness. The couple fled to Indiana before making their way to Pennsylvania, where they sat in jail for some time before being extradited back to Delaware. A Kent County grand jury indicted both Christy and Brandon. Christy was also charged with assault in the 2nd degree, abuse of a corpse, and reckless burning. The following month, the state added an additional indictment on 2 counts of murder by abuse or neglect for Christy. At this time, more specific details were released about the life Emma and her siblings lived with Christy and Brandon. Between January 2018 and September 2019, Christy, with Brandon's complicity, abused and neglected her children, with Emma suffering the most extreme abuse. She was deprived of food, limited to a rice and oatmeal diet. Her medical care was neglected. They endangered her welfare along with her siblings, bruised her face, forced her and her siblings to exercise to an unreasonable level, inflicted inappropriate physical discipline, and burnt her. Court records show that Christy had been in multiple custody battles between 2016 and 2017 over Emma with Emma's great aunt and other family members. Christy was scheduled to go to trial in July of 2023, but that didn't happen. Christy decided to plead guilty to 1st-degree murder by abuse or neglect, abuse of a corpse, and 3 felony counts of endangering the welfare of a child, with her remaining charges dropped. She was facing a minimum of 15 years to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Her sentencing was postponed for a couple months. Family members were angered by this guilty plea, and they were shocked at the fact that this was a plea deal offered by the prosecution, and they were not informed until Christy had already entered into the agreement. Emma's great aunt stated, "I feel like I'm being hit by a bus all over again. I am so mad that they didn't even bother to say a damn thing to any of us. We should have had the right to know in case we wanted to be there." As if Emma's family hadn't already endured enough, the next day it was revealed that Brandon was also offered a plea deal. He agreed to plead guilty to 1 felony count and 3 misdemeanor counts of endangering the welfare of a child, with his remaining charges also being dropped. Brandon faced a maximum of 8 years in prison, but the state was only recommending a sentence of probation. Had he not been offered a plea deal and went to trial, he faced up to 44 years in prison for his initial charges. Now, Brandon originally agreed to this deal back in February of 2023 in exchange for his testimony against Christy, but this wasn't released to the public because Christy had written Brandon a letter telling him to take out a life insurance policy on her because she was contemplating committing suicide. Attorneys feared there may have been consequences in this regard if Christy learned of the plea. Emma's family, again, was outraged by Brandon's plea deal given his lenient sentencing recommendation. Emma's aunt, Kelsey Cole Navarro, said of Brandon's plea deal, "I think it's atrocious. Maybe he didn't kill her, but he was with Christy for a whole year after and didn't say anything. How do you do something so heinous and be a part of that for so long and then just get a slap on the wrist? On September 14th, 2023, Christy Haas was sentenced in Superior Court to the recommended sentence of 30 years in prison for the murder of her daughter, Emma Grace Cole. Christy stated at her sentencing, "I'm sorry for all the hurt that I inflicted and the pain that I caused. I knew everything was wrong and I was so messed up because of everything I did. I thought I could get away with it, to be honest." Christy blamed her actions on drug addiction, stating, "I wasn't okay then. I'm trying my best to be better than I was." Christy also recalled her mental health issues and her relationship with Brandon. Brandon was sentenced that same day. The judge did not follow the state's sentencing recommendation for him. Instead, he was sentenced to 4 years and 1 month in prison. Brandon tearfully apologized for not going to authorities after the murder of Emma, stating that Christy told him that he would be blamed for Emma's death. He maintained that he did not know what happened between Emma and Christy before Emma died. Emma's father told the court, "I will never comprehend why Emma Grace had to lose her life. I don't know what this beautiful little baby could have done to deserve this." Christy was ordered not to have any contact with any of her children while they were still minors, unless authorized by an Indiana court with jurisdiction over their custody. Christy is now 32 and is housed at the Baylor Women's Correctional Center. She'll be eligible for parole in July of 2047 after serving close to 27 years in prison. Emma had family. She had people that loved her. She spent her first days with her great aunt, Miss Tanya. Her father, once he found out that he was her father, he stepped up. Aunts, uncles, bonus siblings, cousins loved Emma. But somehow a judge thought she'd be better off with a woman she did not know. I send the deepest condolences to Emma's family, her siblings, her father, her great aunt, and all of those who loved her. Rest in peace, Emma Grace Cole. Hours upon hours, days on days, caught on home video cameras that were installed in the bedroom of a Kent County home where 2 young boys lived in pure hell. Attorney Kathy Jennings said the truly horrific violence Mary and Charles Vinson inflicted on the boys over a 20-month period was among the most brutal cases she's seen during her 3 decades as a prosecutor. This ranks as one of the worst I've seen, not only for the abuse, the deprivation these children suffered, but the time period over which it occurred, Jennings said. One child was near death. They were between the ages of 10 and 13 during the time of this abuse, in which they were often forced to wear diapers, hospitalized several times for malnutrition and other conditions. They were alternately forced fed or not fed at all. Mary and Charles Vinson hospital shop, a comparison to the practice of opioid users who go and visit multiple doctors for prescription drugs. Mary and Charles took the boys to at least 3 different hospitals to avoid the abuse being detected. Mary was not the biological mother of these children. However, her husband, who was 9 years her junior, was their biological father. Mary was accused of choking, punching, and kicking the boys, and starving them. Her husband admitted to police that he joined in on some of the beatings, but had turned a blind eye to his wife's serial abuse. The couple was questioned by state police in June of 2021 after receiving a report, but both Charles and Mary denied hurting these babies. Mary told authorities that she loved the boys as her own. Criminal charges were not filed at this time. But finally, in October 2021, help was on the way for these children, thanks to a doctor who alerted authorities that one of the boys were at imminent risk of death upon his admission from severe dehydration and said he suspected the child was a victim of child torture. The boy spent 3 days in intensive care before being stabilized. The State Division of Family Services immediately took custody of the children. Police also learned about the video camera system in the home. However, when they went to the Vinson's house to seize the recordings, the camera was missing, court records said. Charles Vinson later told them that he had taken a DVR with the footage to a storage facility. Police located that footage at the facility and viewed what happened inside the bedroom. Additionally, Charles admitted that his sons were sometimes locked in their rooms because of behavior problems, including inappropriate touching and harming of their dogs. In February of 2022, 45-year-old Mary and 36-year-old Charles were arrested and held at state prisons in lieu of a $600,000 cash bond. 8 months later, they were indicted on a whopping 646 felony and misdemeanor count indictment. The indictment also reveals specifics on how these boys were treated. It was determined that Mary Vinson was the lead perpetrator. She pleaded guilty to 42 felonies in October 2023, including first-degree child abuse, kidnapping, and strangulation. She faced 30 to 444 years in prison, and prosecutors sought a 118-year sentence. 37-year-old Charles Vinson admitted to 12 felonies, including first-degree child abuse and kidnapping. He faced 10 to 158 years behind bars. Prosecutors were asking for a 37-year term. March the following year, Superior Court Judge Jeffrey Clark sentenced Mary Vinson to 106 years in prison. Charles Vinson received a 49-year sentence. Both spoke during the sentencing hearing, Mary stating in part, "I didn't want to hurt them. It didn't start out that way. I loved those boys like they were my own." Charles said he failed his sons and was ashamed to be called a father. The judge was sure to praise the unidentified doctor who blew the final whistle that saved these boys. At the time of sentencing, the boys were still in the custody of the state. With their sentences handed down, I think it's safe to say neither Vinson will ever have the ability to hurt another child for the rest of both of their lives. But still, the amount of abuse and torture inflicted on these kids, I'm sure they'll live with the evil memories for the rest of their lives. I pray they are truly in safe care, getting the love and treatment they need and deserve, and not allow those 20 months to define them or their futures. And yes, doctors, social workers, school employees, healthcare, and law enforcement professionals are mandated by law to report suspected abuse or neglect. But the truth is, children, all children will be safer if all of us keep an eye out for the signs and report it if you see it. As the saying goes, better safe than sorry.
They let her walk out these doors today, or there was a death sentence or anywhere in between. It doesn't bring back our friends, our family. It doesn't stop the rolling bypass. We're gonna push forward, and hopefully this closes a chapter in the healing process, but I mean, this is never gonna end for any of us. It just might help to make it a little bit better.
The parties had agreed to recommend 25 years of jail time, and the court imposed a sentence of 30 years of jail time.
Nothing can be done to ever take that back. We thank the judge for his sentence, and we respect what the defendant said, that she feels remorse and wants to change.
She is emotional. I think she's, as you saw in the courtroom, she's emotional because of the great sorrow that she feels for the impact that this has had upon everyone. And hearing it again today makes it very difficult for her. She's a good person, and she's so much more than the events that happened in September of 3 years ago. And she feels it very much. So when you come into court and you hear it from the victims and their family members, and you understand the pain that's been wrought by all that's happened, it has a real impact on her. It has. But as I described in my remarks, she is somebody who's going to try to take what she's been through and use it positively and help people.
It's never going to bring it back, but it's the best that it could be, and I hope it gives some relief to the families and the members.
30 years in prison, 2.5 years of probation and deportation upon release for causing the fire that claimed 3 lives, displaced families, and endangered the lives of many others. Out of frustration, anger, and dissatisfaction with her current life situation, Beatrice Ruiz used body spray and lit a piece of paper to set fire to a dollhouse in her stepmother's basement where she was living. When she started the fire, she, her stepmother, and 7 other people were inside the Canby Park Row home. Beatrice fled the scene. Wilmington firefighters responded on September 24th, 2016 at about 3 a.m. to the 1900 block of Lakeview Road. Firefighters rushed into the burning home after receiving reports that someone was trapped inside. A report that was not correct. Entering the home, risking their lives to save another. As they worked the interior of the home, the fire spread, weakening the structure and causing a floor to collapse. Lieutenant Christopher Leach and senior firefighter Ardith Hope fell into the basement, becoming trapped by fire and debris. Senior firefighter Jerry Fickus entered the basement, located Lieutenant Leach, and was attempting to remove him when a subsequent collapse occurred, trapping both firefighters. It took 30 to 40 minutes to bring the fire to a stop, gutting the home and damaging 2 others. Lieutenant Leach and senior firefighter Fickus were pronounced dead on scene. It was later determined they died of asphyxiation and thermal injuries. Firefighter Brad Speakman also fell into the burning basement, causing serious injuries. He suffered burns on 30% of his body and spent weeks in the hospital.
Thank you. I appreciate all the support.
Brett, everyone's been dying anxious. How's it feel? How does it feel to get out? How are you feeling?
It was a long 6 weeks, but I just want to thank everybody from Crozier. It was amazing how helpful they were. My family, how strong we were with all the support. Obviously you can see from the fire department. Wilmington Fire Department has been great. My whole fire family has been just amazing. I wouldn't have been able to go without them. I feel like it advanced it by half the time just because of all the support that I had. It's been treatment here has been fabulous. Yeah, I couldn't ask for more. I believe that they did help me by leaps and bounds. The whole time.
Can you answer what your emotions been coming out today after such a horrific tragedy?
I just, I don't even know if I have the words. I just can't wait to get home and be able to spend time with my family. Finally get to see my kids. After a long time, being within the confinements of the hospital. So,
what are you looking forward to most? Something you want to go eat? You going out?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing my 7 and my 5-year-old. I wasn't able to really see them when I was in here, so I can't wait to see them. So,
what kind of recovery do you have ahead of you?
Still a long road. A lot of PT and just figuring out. My burns. They're still healing. They're still on the road, but. Crozier's made it happen that the road's gonna be shorter, hopefully. So.
Do you remember the day it happened? Or you black it out, or
I remember it every day, and I'm gonna remember it every day for the rest of my life. So it's a day that you know was a tragedy and you know something that hopefully I'll forget. So,
Do you have plans to return to the department?
Yes, I have plans to return to the department as soon as possible.
Your colleague upstairs still trying to heal?
Yes. Yeah, I'm not. You know, just I wish the best for her, and you know, her family's trying to keep it private. So.
Senior firefighter Hope was in critical condition upon her arrival at the hospital. She was being treated for extensive burns until complication of those burns led to her passing on December 1st, 2016. Beatrice initially told investigators that she had been drinking and taking Xanax the night of the fire and denied starting the blaze, telling authorities she went to the basement but could not remember anything else because she was drunk and on anxiety medication. She did recall to ATF agents being angry and going into the basement where the fire was started. Beatrice was indicted on January 23, 2017, facing multiple counts of first-degree murder, assault, arson, and reckless endangering. Beatrice pled guilty in August 2019 to single counts of second-degree murder, first-degree arson, and first-degree assault. She sobbed as she sat in the courtroom, filled with more than 100 family members, friends, and comrades of the fallen firefighters. I stand humbly before you today, humiliated by my actions, she told Superior Court Judge Eric R. Davis, while many in the audience cried. I am no monster. She was still unable to remember the details of that night, blaming her lack of memory on her substance abuse. However, she said not a day goes by she doesn't think about that day and what happened, a day that also left her own family members homeless. The United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement filed a detainer against Beatrice, seeking her deportation to her home country of the Dominican Republic when she's released from custody in Delaware. She was also ordered to have no contact with any of the victims, which include her father and her 15-year-old son.
She had a terrible night, and she did something terrible that will affect us for the rest of our lives, and I guess it tugs at your heartstrings, so I feel for her too.
She is somebody who's going to try to take what she's been through and use it positively and help people.